Hey, so my birthday was a total disaster thanks to my spoiled older sister. I just turned 18 a few days ago, and my parents canceled my party at the last minute because she threw a fit. She was supposed to leave for NYC with her friends 3 days before my birthday, but all the flights got canceled because of some crazy storms in the Midwest. So, stuck at home and super pissed, she demanded my birthday be canceled. And guess what? My parents caved without even thinking twice. They didn't even have the decency to tell me. I was sitting there all evening, wondering why no one was showing up for my party. When I finally asked what was going on, they casually mentioned that they canceled it because my sister was upset. They even lied to the guests, saying I was sick with a migraine and told them not to text me. So I was completely in the dark. I lost it. I started yelling at my parents because this was just the latest in a long line of moments where they put her needs above mine. They always treated her like the golden child and expected me to just deal with it. But this was supposed to be my big day, and it was all taken away because of her whining over a trip getting canceled due to reasons nobody could control. While I was freaking out, they were more worried about being too loud and waking her from her nap. Seriously? I kept yelling until my sister came downstairs and had the nerve to say I was the one being spoiled and entitled. That pushed me over the edge, and things got physical. We were in the middle of a full-on fight when the doorbell rang. Turns out it was my grandpa. He's like the one person everyone in the family respects and fears. So he walked in and demanded to know what was going on. I spilled everything. I told him how my parents always favorited my sister and how they'd ruined my birthday without even telling me. Grandpa was shocked and furious. Turns out he had no idea how bad things were. He'd been sending money to my parents every month to help them out, because their business was struggling. He even paid for my birthday party. He absolutely laid into my dad for how they treated me, saying they had let him down big time. My parents just stood there, taking it, but my sister, being her usual foolish self, tried to argue back. Grandpa was having none of it. So, long story short, I moved in with Grandpa. He cut off their money and let them know they'd really messed up. It felt good to finally speak up and set the record straight. So, get this. My sister had been eagerly waiting for this big trip for a couple of months, but it got canceled indefinitely. And guess what? She thought it was super heartless of me to throw a party while she was bummed out. But my grandpa, oh man, he was having none of it. He straight up told her she was acting entitled for even suggesting I cancel my 18th birthday bash just because she was upset about her trip. He laid it out. The world doesn't revolve around her, and she could reschedule her trip. Well, that didn't sit well with my sister, and arguing with Grandpa just made him angrier. So he told my parents he was done supporting them financially. And, oh, the best part? He turned to me and said if I wanted out, I should pack my bags and come stay with him. Obviously, my parents freaked out, not because I was leaving, but because they'd lose Grandpa's support. Total priorities check, right? I didn't waste any time. While my parents tried to bargain with Grandpa, I zipped upstairs, threw my stuff together, and headed out with him. He didn't even glance back at my dad. During the drive to his place, Grandpa apologized for everything I'd been through and said he should have stepped in way sooner. I honestly don't know what he meant by that, but I'm just so relieved to be staying with him now. Now, the only ones unhappy about this setup are my parents. They've been bombarding me with calls and messages, which I haven't blocked but also haven't responded to. They keep apologizing, saying they didn't realize they were neglecting me because they thought I was tough enough to handle it. Seriously? My sister is 5 years older and should be the one toughening up. Anyway, their apologies felt super fake, just a ploy to get Grandpa's support back. The last straw was them canceling my birthday party without even telling me. So, this morning, I texted my dad, told him to stop the fake apologies, and said I knew they just wanted Grandpa's money. I was done with them. Then my dad replied saying they were willing to do anything to make it right. They messed up by saying anything, because I turned it around and said I'd only consider coming back if my sister moved out. I mean, she's 23 and has been working for 2 years. Time to be independent, right? My parents think I'm being unreasonable, but I don't care. Am I the jerk for setting that condition? Edit. So, People asked why I never spoke up about how my parents treated me. Well, at first it was small stuff. Leaving the last slice of pizza for my sister, not wearing clothes she liked, mostly wearing her hand-me-downs. It seemed too petty to mention to relatives, and I didn't think anyone would offer to let me move out over it. As for Grandpa, he's a total badass. He's super respected in the family, was a top-notch lawyer, and won lots of tough cases back in the day. On top of that, he's got strong morals, lives a disciplined life, and is, well, loaded. So OB is like the superstar of the family. Everyone looks up to him. I could have talked to him about the way my parents were treating me, but last year he was super busy taking care of my grandma, who was in her last days. I didn't want to add to his stress with my complaints about Mom and Dad. After Grandpa passed, he was grieving, and I didn't want to bring it up then either. But now that he's offered to help me out, I'm really grateful. We've always had a great relationship, so it's no surprise that he'd offered to let me move in with him until I head off to college. He's even said he'll cover all my expenses until I get a job, which is honestly a huge relief. Update 1. Hey there, I've decided to stick to the condition I gave my parents. There's no way I'm going back to live with them, even if they do kick my sister out. I just want to see if they're serious about wanting me back, or if they think my sister's more important than my grandpa's financial support. I haven't told Grandpa about this, though. But to be fair, he had hidden things from me, too. Like, I only recently found out that Grandpa knew all along that my parents didn't really want me. He never said anything because he didn't want to add to the drama. He explained that my parents only planned on having one child. 5 years after my sister was born, Mom got pregnant with me. They wanted to terminate the pregnancy, but Dad told my mom's parents, and they were super insistent that another child was a blessing. So my maternal grandparents convinced my parents to have me. Sadly, my maternal grandparents died in a car accident when my mom was 8 months pregnant with me. It was a really tough time for Mom, and she had a bit of a breakdown. After getting institutionalized for a few weeks, she got better, but my parents still regretted having me. They wanted to put me up for adoption, but my paternal grandparents put their foot down. They raised me, but clearly, it wasn't what my parents wanted. When Grandpa explained all this, he was apologizing and saying he should have taken steps earlier. And I agree, he really should have. But now that I know why my parents treated me differently, I'm never going back to them. I think my actions are justified. They punished me for something that wasn't my fault. I'm still a bit mad at Grandpa for not telling me sooner, but I get that it's tough to talk about this stuff with a kid. He's the only person I can rely on now, so I'm trying not to hold it against him. Update 2. It's been a week and 4 days since I moved out, and my parents have been texting me, trying to change my mind about the condition I set. I've been ignoring them because I don't see the point in talking until they make a decision. They hadn't contacted me in the last 3 days, so I thought they'd given up. But today, after school, I saw my sister waiting outside. I didn't feel good about it, so I asked one of my guy friends, who's a football player and pretty big, to walk me home. We've been friends for ages, and he knows everything about my family situation, so he agreed. My sister followed us silently, and it was really creeping me out. So halfway home, I turned around to ask her what was up. She said she didn't want to talk in front of my friend, but I told her I didn't want to talk to her at all. She started saying our parents were really stressed and upset because of how I've been behaving. Then she mentioned that our parents told her I wouldn't come back home or talk to Grandpa about supporting them unless she was kicked out. She was there to confront me about it, saying I was being unfair. I thought it was ridiculous that she expected me to discuss this, so I told her that if I can't be happy, neither can she. That's the same logic she used to get my party canceled, so it applies to her too. Then I just turned around and walked home. So she just started screaming at me, calling me a horrible person. I didn't even turn around or respond. I just kept walking with my friend and flipped her off. I guess that really pissed her off, because the next thing I knew, she attacked me. I ended up on the ground with the weight of my backpack and her on top of me. Luckily, my friend literally had my back. Within seconds, he lifted her off me. When I finally managed to get back on my feet and dust myself off, I saw him holding her at arm's length. He wasn't even breaking a sweat, So I'm glad he walked me home since my sister has always had this violent streak. I was super annoyed that she thought she could just attack me and get away with it. So I walked up to her, slapped her hard, and told her if she tried anything like that again, I'd report her to the cops. Given all the trouble she's already caused our parents, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't appreciate more of it. She had the nerve to keep arguing, but after that slap, she didn't follow us further. When I got back home, I told my grandpa everything. He was about to call the cops, but I told him it wasn't worth it. She's just a loser, and I was sure she had learned her lesson. Besides, she was already in a risky position with our parents. Then I told Grandpa about the condition I set for my parents. I thought he'd be upset, but he just laughed with me, thinking it was clever. He agreed that our parents deserved to get messed around with a bit. So that was that. Even though I was feeling sore from being pushed down, it felt good to finally stand up to my sister. It had been a long time coming. Now, I just hope my parents and sister take this as a lesson and leave me alone. Update 3. Hey, so it's been almost a month since I moved out. I'm starting college in September, so I'll be living with my grandpa for the next couple of months. School's officially over, and I just had my high school graduation a few days ago. My date to prom was my boyfriend, the football player friend I mentioned before. Yep, some of you guessed it. Now, on to what happened with my parents and sister. After the whole incident with my sister, I got a message from my parents 2 days later. They said they had decided to let my sister continue living with them because they thought I was jealous and petty. They only wanted me back for Grandpa's financial help, but my uncle stepped in as a partner in their business, so they didn't need me anymore. They pretended they thought this would hurt my feelings, but I already knew their true intentions, so it didn't bother me. I didn't even reply, which must have annoyed them because they sent another message a few hours later, saying they were going to block me. They called me a horrible, ungrateful, and violent person. Yeah, I slapped my sister, but it's no surprise they ignored the part where she attacked me first. They also brought up how much they spent raising me, which I think is just the bare minimum for parents. I wanted to reply, but it wasn't worth my time, so I blocked them first. Now, Grandpa and I are living happily. I got accepted into a bunch of colleges, and am waiting to hear back from a few top choices. Grandpa's going to cover all my expenses, like he promised. We're still getting used to living together. Sometimes I get mad at him for not taking me away from my parents earlier, but he's trying to make up for it now. He regrets not being able to help me sooner, but we're working through it together. Hopefully, I won't have to deal with my parents ever again. Update 4. Hi, it's been a full year since my last update. Thanks so much for all the lovely comments and supportive DMs. I'm doing great right now. Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a quick update on my life. So, my whole family's kind of cut ties with my parents and my sister. My mom's side of the family still talks to them, but my grandpa made sure no one from my dad's side does anymore. I never really talked about how I was treated, so most people didn't know. But once my grandpa started telling people he wasn't in touch with my parents, they began to find out why we had that big fallout. Now my parents are pretty much ostracized. Honestly, they have no one but themselves to blame for this mess. It's like karma, you know? I have no clue what my sister's been up to, but I heard she recently moved out and is living on her own now. That news actually reminded me to update you all here. My boyfriend and I are still going strong. We see each other on the weekends since I come home from college then. Speaking of college, I've made a ton of friends and feel like a brand new person. Oh, and my grandpa and I have really worked on our relationship. We're super close now. He's my favorite person ever. Sure, he's made mistakes in the past, but who hasn't? I've forgiven him, and we've moved on. So yeah, I'm really happy now. Thanks for all your support. Catch you later.